It's great to see you all. I'm going to just scroll over and see some more of you. There you are. Hello, hello, hello. Oh my gosh, there you all are. Wonderful. Okay, we're going to continue with our exploration of rhetorical performance, the art of playing expressively and communicatively using the structures, phrasing, and inflect of speech. You've practiced the 4 shapely bowings, yes? For some reason, oh, there we go. That's fine. You've practiced the 4 shapely bowings, and I actually would like to review those again, if you don't mind, for just a few minutes. So get your instruments. We're just going to start with that. In the second class and next week, we'll be doing them again, but we'll also be playing bits of music privately, as it were, but together. Okay, so
before we get started, I want to just mention that because Elizabeth is on the road and you just never know with the internet, if we have internet trouble, I'll just call it out and say, can you say that again, or can you play that again? So we're not apologizing for bad internet, we're just working around it. And you know what? I'm going to suggest that you actually get rid of the background because it doesn't know how to deal with the violin and it obscures some of it.
Gotcha. Okay, let me get back to that. Hold on one second.
Also, everybody should be muted at this point. I'm going to mute myself too.
There.
It's fine.
Okay. Okay, so here we go with the bowing number 1, which is just that declarative. Really make your arm go round and continue the curve of your gesture right down into the string. So impact the string gently and go deep and release. And you only need about a half of your bow. You don't want to pull. If you pull, you go into 2 dimensions where you don't want to be. You want to be in 3 dimensions. So you want to just keep that lower, just lower half of the bow is fine. You want to hear a nice, hot, intense sound in the middle of the bow stroke. Whole arm from your shoulder, motion from your shoulder, so the whole arm is going up, not just the forearm or not just the hand, the whole business. You're using your whole arm kind of in a unified way. You're not trying to break your wrist or anything. The whole thing is a kind of an arm gesture. Go down deep and release. Ideally, it should start soft, get loud, and as you pull off the string, you should have generated enough resonance that the resonance fading away completes the shape of the sound. A couple more of these. It's fun to watch. Okay, let's do a couple of them on the up bow. Again, just the lower half of the bow, 8 or 9 inches up from your forefinger, that's all you need. And it's harder, I'm not gonna make you try to enter this string hard. You're gonna get corked or something.
So if you would say that again one time.
Yeah, you try to do from the tip. Good. From here, just entering gently, and don't go fast. Push the bow down slowly into the string to feel like you're kind of carving with a knife, just kind of carving down into something, or maybe shoveling some really good dirt. Just again, you're looking for that round shape, that shapely note. Okay, and then we do the last 2, which are Shazam and music. Okay, so Shazam comes first. So a very light entry into this string. Immediate crescendo to the fullness of the down bow, which is very much like the solo down bow that we did first. Okay, and the last bow stroke is that you just do a number one bowing, and then at the end you just happen to change your bow as you're drifting off the string, and it makes a little tiny up bow, a very weak little up bow. Almost inaudible is fine. Actually, you're totally inaudible, but that's not what I mean. So. Okay, so that's just sort of pulling us back into the zone with this. And I just want to hasten to assure you that this is not futile. This is not some random exercise to make you feel like you're getting your money's worth or anything like that. This is actually the real deal. If you do this kind of thing, this is the fundaments of rhetorical performance. Strong and weak, weak to strong, strong to weak, strong, strong, weak, weak, week by week. We get stronger. So don't ever think that it's pointless or repetitive. Yes, it's repetitive, but Tartini said an hour a day on this stuff, right? He wasn't kidding. So there are two more concepts before I can carry on with my imaginary friends, which is my favorite lecture of all time. There's two concepts that I haven't had time to address, and I think now is the time to do it. The first one has to do with bowing, since we've been bowing. As you probably noticed, the stronger direction on the Baroque bow or the choked up modern bow is the down bow, right? And in fact, if I put words to any of these bowings, like if I do the yum bum bum of the Bach E major concerto, like pork and beans or something like that, you notice that pork and beans are the down bows and the up bow is and, right? Not a central inflected note, a connective note, right? Wum, bum, wum, right? So basically the principle is pretty easy to pull out from this, the behavior of the bow and the idea of inflecting. And that is that when you have something that you have determined intuitively or analytically or ideally both is an important note, you want to try to put it on a down bow. And if you have a note that you have identified as connective, anticipatory, passively responsive, anything like that, you probably want to put that on an up bow. This puts you in a very rhetorical mode. And it's going to come out very quickly when we look at the piece that Lauren submitted, a Buxtehude piece. He was curious about how to bow when the string parts are matching, playing con la voce, exactly the same notes as a sung part that has words. Wants to know how to do that. And this is central. This concept of using the bow, down bow for strong, up bow for weak, is absolutely central, because then you just basically follow the patterns of strong and weak syllables in the text. And we'll get to that in the second half of the class. Okay, so that's one big bowing concept. So think about that when you're trying to figure out how to bow something next time. If it feels like a strong thing, try to put it on a down bow. Not so strong, try to get it on an up bow. You're never going to get alternation, because that's not music. Music is wilder and freer than any mechanical alternation, right? But as a basic principle, it will guide you well. Okay, the second concept that I need to talk about right now, it's actually very related. And that is, when you think about when you were first learning time signatures and stuff, we were told, okay, 4/4 or common time, a C, there's 4 quarter notes and they're equal. That's what we're taught, right? And of course they are equal in time. But back in the Baroque times, I don't believe they looked at 4 quarter notes in a bar as equal. In fact, they explicitly didn't. Yes, equal in time, but not in another way. In terms of importance, they were structured very simply, rather mechanically. The downbeat was good, always a strong beat, almost always. I mean, as a theoretical construct, the downbeat's always important. If you've had a strong beat, rhetoric says, must be time for a weak beat. So beat 2 is weak. And once you've had a weak beat, it's time for another strong beat. So beat 3 is strong and beat 4 is weak. So you get this alternating structure of strong and weak. Now this is a kind of a, what you might say, a very simplistic or primitive way of imbuing rhythm, inflection, with strength and weakness. It's not a perfect system, but it's darn good. It's surprising how much it can help you sound lively and natural just by not playing every beat equally the way we're trained to do, right off the bat. So that was one thing, that they're trying to get the rhetoric right, sort of embedded on some basic level directly into the rhythm. The other reason it probably came out this way has to do with dance music. Dance music involves dancers and their bodies, and typically Baroque music involves an upward gesture for the strength. You rise up on a strong thing and you rise down, you fall down on a weak thing. You can't continually be putting out strong gestures. It's not in the body, right? It doesn't flow through the body that way. So dance music inherently had strong and weak beats. And I think that was also part of this whole concept of not seeing beats as equal, even though they're equal in their duration, right? Let's see if there's anything else I want to say. Yeah, I just wanted to point out that Baroque dance, in that sense, is yet another language. We've got spoken language. We've got the translation of it into music as embedded by the composer. We've got what we're discussing now, which is performance rhetoric, a language of performing. And yes, Baroque dance, or any dance really, is another form of language, really, with its own grammar and rules and important things and unimportant things. Okay, so now you've got concept of bowing, strong and weak. You've got concept of beats as strong. Oh yeah, I wanted to say about this strong and weak thing. It's actually kind of cool. It's a historical fact. Sorry to digress backwards, but I have to. It's not just the beats themselves that are strong and weak. If you subdivide your quarters into eighth notes, it goes strong, weak, strong, weak, strong. So in a bar, you'd go strong, weak, a little bit stronger for the second beat, but not as strong as the first beat, because the second beat's weaker than the first beat, and weaker. Third beat somewhere between the first and the second beat for strong, and another weak thing. So there were actually, 8 different levels functionally of dynamic for each of those eighth notes as they played out through a strong, weak bar that was subdivided, right? Pretty intense. And that didn't stop there. If you divide it into 16th notes, each quarter note, the same principle would hold. So if you actually tried to play like that, you will go mad. You will go mad because you cannot possibly process that kind of control as 16th notes are going by. But it turns out that it is incredibly useful to try to think that way. Gustav Leonhardt came to Philharmonia a couple times in the 80s. And one time we did the Bach Magnificat, which was a memorable experience. In the first movement of that, he said, okay, he delineated this concept that I just discussed and asked us to try very hard to implement it in our performance. And it was just mind-boggling what happened. The piece just got up and danced. It was buoyant, it bubbled. We were all going crazy, but it was really wonderful. So there is a lot to this. It completely altered the textures. It altered the feel of the piece. It was wonderful. It was a wonderful thing. And I'm appalled that no conductor that I've worked with since has asked for that, because it was really cool. It was wonderful. And I should say, before we leave this topic of unequal beats, I should also mention that if you have 3/4 or 3/8 or something like that as your time sign, what do? What happens? Because you've got 1, 2, now what's going to happen? I'm going to have 3 be strong, and then we hit the next downbeat and it's strong again? Well, there are a number of creative solutions for this that were proposed and used. Georg Muffat, in the end of the 1600s, codified a bowing. If it was a slow-ish or medium tempo 3/4 kind of a thing, yes, indeed. Down, up, down, down, up, down, down, right? So you got your strong downbeat, you got your weak second beat, you had the inevitable strong third beat, and then you started over, right? And that meant you had to take another down bow because they're not going to put a strong beat on an up bow, right? So there you have that concept out there for everybody to see. I mean, that was how people bowed. Two variants on that consist of, well, a couple of them are, let's see, the sarabande. The French sarabande features strong, up, down. A strong followed by a strong beat. Perverse, subversive even. It's upending the natural order of strong is succeeded by weak. You don't do that in a sarabande. In a French sarabande, it's strong. So it's kind of a, it's kind of got a little pushback. Pom, poo, right? It's not submissive second beat. It's a little attitude there. I'd say the French are good at attitude. So not surprising there. So there you have it, jam, pois, pa, pa. So that's a variant on this strong and weak theme in beats. And the last one is that when a triple meter went a little too fast, you can go down, jump, bump, bunch, bump, bunch. You can't get those down bows when it goes too fast. You cannot do down, up, down, down, up, down, down. It's not going to happen, right? It's not physically doable. So in that case, they allowed you to have a second weak beat after the first. You have strong, weak, weak. Ba-cha-pa, 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 ba. So down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, right? And that was the bowing. And they even went so far as to point out that when it got going that fast, you should start considering that it might be implicitly that you might be dealing with like a 6/8 or a 12/8, 4 to 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, right? So that you've got a compound meter. And at that point, the larger beat structure takes over and you have strong cha-cha, less cha-cha, stronger cha-cha, less cha-cha, right? Well, okay. So now you've got that concept, which is pretty intense, but we're going to let it go now. And I want to point out, now that you know about strong and weak, it becomes pretty clear that when you're looking at a piece of music, what you want to be sure about is what's strong, what needs to be brought out, what can be let go. Some people are concerned about this. They think, how do I know? Well, I'm going to harp back to something I said in the first class, which is that you should consult your intuition first. Start with your intuition. Your intuition it's your oldest form of knowledge. It is a kind of sixth sense. It's like, I see dead composers. I don't know if you saw that movie, The Sixth Sense. I see dead people or something like that. Yeah, I see dead composers. I would like to see, well, I'd like to see them while they were alive, actually, but I can't do that. Anyway, it's not a sensory thing, your sixth sense, your intuition, but there is that little satisfying internal thunk when you feel like you've suddenly understood something. It's a very delightful feeling. And if you singing is a great way to access your intuition, so I highly recommend it. We might do a little singing, and you'll be glad to know that you won't be audible, and I will probably even mute myself as a courtesy to you when we start singing. All right, so intuition, check. Now, of course, there's another way to approach understanding what's important in music, and that is more like rational analysis and like that. You're probably all invited, if you took an advanced music course, to analyze a piece of music. It was given to you and you had to do something with it. And usually what that meant was you had to figure out what its form was, right? You had to identify the form, the formal structure. That was called analyzing. Or if you had to do a harmonic analysis, you had to be able to say what the names of the chords were, right? As you went along. Some people love that. I actually do kind of love it. And it's a very interesting function. The whole business of analyzing things, I read a fascinating book that suggested that our frontal cortex, which is responsible for a great deal of rational thought, abstract thought, a bunch of sorting, identifying, all of it, that actually that part of the brain probably developed from the olfactory bulbs, which are the business end of your nose. And they're right behind, there's two, one for each hemisphere, one behind and between the eyes. And if you think of a dog with their enormous schnozzes and how keen their sense of smell is, what they're doing is they're sorting. They sort what that is, what that smell belongs to. Is it good to eat? Is it good to mate with? What is it? Right? You know, they're just sorting the world and identifying. It's a very valuable survival tool. Anyway, the speculation is that our analytical properties developed essentially out of our noses, which is kind of cool. In fact, you think about phrases like, oh, he has a nose for news, or he sniffed something out, right? We still use the words of the nose to involve figuring things out, right? And finding things and learning things. Okay, so get rid of this. Well, the point of all this, of course, is that we have, in addition to our intuition, we have this powerful thing that we can use, and we're going to employ it. Now, we're not going to do it like formal analysis or anything like that. What we're going to do now is, I hope it's more homely and sort of, I think it's a lot more fun. And because I'm kind of I'm going to introduce you now to my 7 imaginary friends. And because I am kind of a visual thinker and I like to have fun, I have in fact created in my mind visual images of these people. And I encourage you to do the same. The reason I'm introducing them to you is because each of them has have behaviors and desires about the music that can inform you when you identify them, right? When you see these people coming, you can see, oh, this is what this character would like. And here we go. Okay, so the first imaginary friend I've named Melody Queen. Her dogma lives loudly in sopranos, in violinists, in tenors, and in flutists. Strong melody queen element in most of those. Everybody's got some of it, but people that gravitate to the flute, the high voices, you know, the violins, they tend to have a big lot of it. Melody queen loves high notes. She loves things with a big dramatic range, and she adores the sound of her own beautiful voice. When you find yourself playing louder towards a high note, or worrying about the quality and beauty and opulence of your sound, your inner intuitive melody queen is living loudly inside of you, right? Melody queen is an alpha personality, and if she is not closely monitored by the other friends, she will take over in the entire interpretation. And I'm sure you've encountered a few players who this has happened to. You might even be one of them. It's just all about that long, beautiful sound. I can't wait to go up to that high note. Oh, it's so gorgeous. Yeah, well, it's a great part of music, no doubt about it. But it's not everything, as you're about to see. Our second imaginary friend is Harmony Girl. She tends to live strongly in keyboard players, lutenists, guitar players, any musician who loves the taste of stinky cheese, kimchi, or the sensation of biting down on a lemon wet. What? Yeah, and I do mean something by this. Harmony Girl, if she's in the tonic, like being at home, she's okay. It's fine. Home's nice, right? But if she goes out the door and she hears a dominant, ooh, that's a little more interesting. Subdominant, ooh, she turned a corner. She walks a little further and suddenly she's in a really strange neighborhood. She has modulated and she is very alert. She's very interested in those big key changes. If somebody gives her a dissonance, ooh, that's the best. A dissonance is the best. It's one of those painful moments. That's the lemon wedge that you bite down on, or the kimchi that you had one too big a bite of, or it was just too hot for you. Ooh, it hurts so good. Harmony Girl loves dissonance. I just read recently, actually, that people actually can enjoy some pain if they know it's going to stop. Kind of like what that saying is, when you bang your head against a wall, it feels so good when you stop, right? I've never tried this. But seriously, something can hurt a little bit. So something that hurts your ear can be an exquisite sensation. So when you find yourself leaning into a dissonance, right? Your inner harmony girl is shrieking with pleasure. That's just a great thing. And if you're not leaning into these things, you might be missing something, right? I'm going to give you a couple of quick examples of music that feature melody strongly and one that features harmony rather strongly, just because I was supposed to do that right off the bat and I forgot. So I'm going to jump back to melody. For some reason, my A string won't stay in tune in Houston. Okay, so this is the first movement, the first couple bars of Handel's Violin Sonata in D major. So you'll hear how much my melody queen loves the high notes and how much I'm going to put them on down bows because they're strong and good. So. So it's just straightforward melody, right? Surprising note. You didn't expect that note, did you? It should have gone, right? But it didn't do that. So it was also a harmonic twist. But I'm focusing on the melody right now. And again, but higher. Falling down. Nothing so interesting there, let it go, right? So there's an example of a melody-based interpretation. And there's not too much alternative there. That just kind of calls out for that. Okay, here's a quick example of a harmony girl-driven piece. Oh, gosh, already out of tune. So that's just the beginning of the saraband, the D minor saraband from the D minor partita. And I would like to just show you what notes Bach actually wrote on the strong beats after the first two bars. So this is the third bar going on to the fourth or so. And here's what you hear. If you hear just the outside voices there, you hear... Every single one of those chords has got this terrible seventh in it. It's like an embarrassment of riches for Harmony Girl. All those dissonances, right? So it's a good thing that Bach put those little connective notes in there so you can hear... He always resolves the painful part, the dissonant part, to something prettier, right? So you hear, and it flows through the melody, so you're not so crazy with those dissonances, but there they are, satisfying your Harmony Girl. Okay, so those are the first two. Number 3, imaginary friend, is Rhythm Boy. Rhythm Boy's natural habitat is in drummers, of course, but also found in players of low kind of grounding instruments like the double bass, the cello, the tuba, the trombone, the left hand of keyboard players, and piccolo players. It's why piccolos. I don't know. I've never encountered a piccolo player who didn't have a pizzazzy, spicy sense of rhythm. I don't know what it is about the piccolo. It just must inspire or draw people who are just going to have a lot of fun in tiny high notes rhythmically. It's an amazing thing. Okay, so Rhythm Boy. What is Rhythm Boy like? You can get along with a steady beat. Steady beat's good. It's like Harmony Girl being in the tonic, or Melody Queen being in mid-range somewhere. It's okay. Not that interesting. A backbeat. Ooh, that's nice. An offbeat. That's a good thing. Change of meter. That's a good thing. Rhythm Boy likes a change of meter. A hemiola. Rhythm Boy loves a hemiola. And he adores syncopations. Syncopations are for Rhythm Boy kind of what dissonances are for Harmony Girl, right? Is everybody clear on what a hemiola is? Just so I know. Little nodding going on. Everybody's good. Great. Thank you. Just want to make sure. Okay. So I'm going to give you a quick example of a piece driven by rhythm. You'll notice that I chose this because it has practically nothing you could call a melody and nothing you could call much in the way of harmony. And this is the beginning of Vivaldi's little violin concerto in A minor. Okay, so it's almost all A minor. There's no nothing except for there's a dominant. Right, there's a little dominant action right at the end. But everything else is in A minor. And it's not exactly melodic, right? Melody Queen is not happy. Now she's frustrated. But Rhythm Boy is really happy. Having a good old time, just rocking out on simple rhythms, repetitive things, just grooving on it, right? So that's kind of a rhythmically activated piece, or at least the beginning of it is. Okay, so our fourth imaginary friend is the poet. Now, I don't like for anybody to think that poets are either male or female, so we're going to make the poets gender fluid. I'm going to use they and them. Plus, actually, as time has gone on and all of this LGBT stuff has come down the pike and I've been processing it and thinking about it, I've been aware that the gendering of my imaginary friends may actually in some tiny way be helping to reinforce some maybe not so great gender stereotypes. I don't know, but this is all in fun, of course, but still. The poets are gender neutral or non-binary or whatever. The poets are keenly aware of phrase structure, rhymes, the importance of breathing and breath, the inflection of meaningful words, the construction and appreciation of smaller forms combined to create larger architectures in a whole piece. In other words, they are, in a way, the most thorough manager of rhetorical skills of all of my imaginary friends, right? They're in charge of a great deal of the effect that your performance would have. Listening to what they tell you can help you build better phrases and deliver the music as you might wish to hear a beautiful poem read aloud. I can't give you an example. I could give you a negative example of bad phrasing, but I'm not going to bother with that. Okay, we'll just discuss phrasing as it comes up when we get to the pieces we're going to work on. Okay, the fifth imaginary friend are the thespians. Again, I used to call them the actor, but then that was not gender neutral. So now I call them the thespians because it's a cooler word anyway. The thespians are concerned with how you present yourself in your visual and physical form when you perform. And this is really important. I mean, to the extent that we've been trained to be good 19th century symphony players and plonk ourselves down in our chairs, not move our torsos much, basically just get the fingers and the right arm moving. You can see this when you watch a well-disciplined symphony orchestra performing. That's the basic, that's what you're supposed to do. And it would indeed be chaotic if everybody's like rocking out in their own personal way in a giant symphony orchestra. Be distracting and difficult. And it's, I think, part of the ethos and aesthetic of a 19th century symphony orchestra for it to be really unified in its physical effect. So that kind of immobility or relative immobility is serving a good purpose, I think. But when you're talking about chamber music, the smaller the group gets, the more individualism your physicality can exhibit, in my opinion. The thespians can be seen most brazenly in the world of opera, their effect, and at rock concerts. And then we're going to have a couple of quick videos. I'm going to skip one of them. But Lolly, if you could pull up the Back to the Future clip. This is the brilliant Michael J. Fox doing his thing, pretending to be a musician. And boy, is he great. One of my favorite movies. Just had to put that in there. Okay, I'm going to skip the next. I'm going to skip the next video because you can check it out if you want. It was intended. It's basically just a chance to see what happens when a lead singer at a rock concert gets up and tells his audience to get effing nuts. I left that phrase out of the excerpt, but they do. So don't ever underestimate the power of rhetoric. That's the whole point of that. You can check that one out. It's online. But I would like to move along to the last one of this is a really beautiful piece of a video. It's Handel Oratorio Theodora, and the aria is Lord to Thee, and it's sung by the forever lamented Lorraine Hunt Lieberson, who is possibly the most complete rhetorician, actress, singer on any level that I've ever heard. Just staggering. So let's see how that comes across on our online. Yeah, great. Okay, so such a powerful performance. I think it's just fascinating. If you listen to that aria without the visuals, you hear just as you hear strength, passionate devotion, and faith. Right? It's a very strong aria. When you see her do that, this staging and the choreography takes it to another level because there's pain in there. There is a struggle, the struggle of the saint with doubt, being constantly contradicted by devotion and determination, right? It's a difficult character to be, right? But that is the power of your thespian that adds such a dimension to that wonderful aria in this particular staging. It can really transform your understanding. So take your body seriously. It's part of your toolkit. Okay, so here we are. I have two more imaginary friends. The next one is he's my recent acquisition, the pacemaker. Sometimes you listen to a performance and you go, that was too fast, and you're dismayed, or God, that was slow, why? Why should that happen? Why should you say that was too fast or that was too slow? We don't think about it. We just take it for granted. Yeah, that was too fast. But why? Maybe you have listened to the same recording of your favorite piece forever, and that's the tempo. And when you hear somebody play it at a different tempo, it's like, no, I don't like that, right? But also it could be that actually your actual processing of the information, the wordy, meaningful elements of the piece, it may be that the tempo is too fast for those elements and you're reacting to that. You kind of like those motor mouth ads where they talk about all you can hardly understand what they're saying. I can't do it. But it's painful to listen to. It's sort of compelling in a fascinatingly horrible way, but it's awful, really. And then on the other hand, when it goes too slow, it's like you've been smoking something. Oh, it's just taking a little too long, you know? We can all relate to that probably. So consulting your pacemaker, your inner pacemaker, can help you get to a tempo that is not a drag and is not annoying the heck out of anybody, right? Now, we've come to the end of the 6 kind of helper managers, but they have a boss. And the boss is the great goddess of affect. And I'm going to stick with goddess here. I mean, I could try to undo that, but I'm pretty wedded to the goddess here. It is she who rules all these others. She coordinates and manages them. She resolves disputes among them, and yes, that happens. They don't always agree. They're sometimes duking it out for dominance. Melody Queen says, this is my high note. And Harmony Girl saying, yeah, but this is my dissonance, right? And Rhythm Boy saying, yeah, but this is my syncopation. And they're not in the same place. And so who's going to get it? You can't serve everybody. Aesop taught us that. Can't please everybody all the time. So your choices are made by your inner goddess. Your inner goddess needs to help you resolve your understandings in a way that creates a clear and perceptible affect for the listener who's listening to your performance. That is her role, is to help you create a really clear, well-articulated, and effective affect. The wonderful thing I think about the goddess is through her that you achieve a kind of communion with the composer, which is kind of mediated by your understanding of his music or her music. She's therefore a very unique and personal being. And through her, consulting her and thinking about the composer and what the composer's written and what all those important elements are, you can achieve, I think, the closest we come to time travel and cause our composers to live anew. So I'm a big fan of the goddess of affect. Okay, so we are now basically done with my introducing all of my people. I'm probably close to out of, no, I have 15 minutes. It's better than I thought. Okay. All right, so what I'd like to do is let's start with, I assure you, I have not looked, I only looked at the titles. I have not studied these scores. I have not gotten in there ahead of you and figured out what I'm going to say. We're going to explore these scores together. And we're going to possibly sing, and we might even play here and there a couple little things from the pieces that were selected by you. We're going to start with Lauren Taylor's submission, which is a piece of the Buxtehude piece called Membran Jesu Nostri. This is the first, there's like 6 or 7 little movements. It's a beautiful piece. And can we squeeze out on this? Yes, we can. All right, I have to get my glasses on, but you don't need to notice because we're all looking at the score now. So he asked for this section where the words are Salve mundi salutare, salve, salve Jesu care, crucis tuae me aptare, velem vere tuscis quare. Okay, so it helps to know Latin, which I barely do, but it helps to know how it would be pronounced. And you can get that from your singers, should you be working with a singer. So here, let's see what we see here. You're looking at this soprano in bar 35. Salve. Oh, salve. So that's a strong, weak syllables, right? Salve. That's bowing number 4. Tampiri. There's a comma after it, so you're not going to connect with your sound into the word mundi. Salve mundi. So it's mundi. It's 2 words that are trochaic. That is, the long, strong syllable comes first, followed by the weak, shorter syllable. Salve mundi salutare. I'm doing it slowly so we can process this. I suspect it goes a little quicker. So we have salve mundi salutare. Salutare. Bowing rise, this is going to be pretty straightforward. You're going to start on a down bow. Sal, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, comma. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Boy, it plays out beautifully as it comes because all of these words, with a couple of minor exceptions, are basically pava, music, salve, mundi, tare, Jesu, care, crucis tuae, right? So all of those words are just going to be straight ahead, just down, up, down, up. You're not going to have to adjust bowings at all. You have some punctuation, right? I mentioned the commas, but there's also an exclamation point in the third bar. So this is great to be looking at vocal music because you've got explicit strong and weak elements in the words, and you've got punctuation, which tells you how to phrase. So, excuse me. So you're going to have to go tam tiram, and you're not going to go salve mundi salutare, right? Salve mu, salve mu. So there's just going to be a tiny little lift to follow that, to create the effect of that comma. Otherwise, if you're doubling the voice and you're playing that part, if you were doubling here, which you probably aren't, it doesn't seem to call for it in the score. But if you were, and it happens a lot, there's lots of music where you're exactly con la voce, playing right along with the singers. You wouldn't want to be sustaining when the singer is breathing. So you've got to watch for those punctuation marks. And when you get to that exclamation point, this is an actorly moment or a thespian moment. So you da da dum dee dee bum boo pum 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 ba pum pum tiam ba pum pum. And that's the most beautiful text. Jesus, the dear one, I guess, or care, I think is to do with with a dearness. So Jesu care, right? So that's the most important, probably the biggest point in the phrase. Salve mundi salutare, salve, salve, Jesu care. So that care is your biggest moment, which doesn't really serve your melody queens so much, right? Because it's not a particularly high note. High notes here are not very high, they get higher later. Harmonically, bum 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 da da dee 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 dum da dee dum. Sorry, I've been singing a B natural when I should be singing a B flat. Salve, salve, Jesu care. Right. So if you look at the bass line, you see this beautiful A flat. Salve mu bum bum. Just mundi budam badam da dee. So that's kind of an interesting moment. Your harmony girl likes hearing the word mundi. Salve mundi, right? Because it's highlighted by that beautiful A flat. Lauren, I have a question for you. If you can unmute and answer a question.
I can try.
Okay, it's just a question of, I only see the top three lines, but if we were to go on into the ritornello, is there anything there that you would like to know about with bowing?
I think it's pretty straightforward, just as the soprano line is.
Good, okay.
And
I just want to make sure that we're
the aria.
Okay. So you notice, I'm going to jump back to what we can see of the soprano line there. In the end of the first line, you can see this thing. I'll say da da dum da da dum da da dum 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 tucis tue mea. We've been seeing slurs on syllables, right? So the notes are moving, little teeny weeny melismets, little tiny melismas, as it were. Moving with the syllables, so the slurs, you would observe those in the violin part. You would bow the slurs that you see. There's an ornament. So you might wonder, looking at the second line, having seen all these 16th notes and the occasional odd 32nd slurred, what happens in the second to last bar, right? Where there are no slurs, right? So what's going on there? How would you accompany this if you were playing the violin with this part? Dum da da doo da, right? Mi do compiam, right? Bam ba ba. The simple answer is, by and large, follow the syllabization of the voice, which would give you 6 notes under the slur, you know, which corresponds to the single syllable me that is being sung by the soprano there. Another possibility, if that feels too slurpy or sounds too sort of shapeless when you hear the singer and the violin articulating exactly the same, right? You can break it up a little bit. If it were me, I might go ta, pa, pa, e, pa, 3 slurred where they're close together. The big interval separate on the B natural, and then da slurred the way it is on the next syllable. Da, da, dee. So that would be, to me, an acceptable version. It helps keep a little bit of rhythmic clarity in the line if you don't have super long slurs in the violin part. Is that the kind of thing you were looking for, Lauren? I know, because you did annotate your choice there, so I wanted to be sure to address that.
No, that's great. Thank you.
Good. Okay. So just as we can leave this we can move this score out now, Lolly. Thank you. You'll probably come across much more complex words because not all words are set up like strong, weak, right? So when you have more complex words, for example, we'll take the 4-syllable word salutare that we did have there. Salutare. It's on the 4th beat. It starts on the 4th beat of that score, sa, which is a leading beat to the next downbeat, salutare. And the word is constructed so that the strong syllable, ta, is on the strong beat, on the downbeat, right? Salutare. So what you would be doing there with your bow is, you wouldn't go salutare, saluta. You would have a little messa di voce. You would group those notes towards the strong syllable in your bow. So that means a little crescendo on that saluta. So that is a form of bowing number 3. Wah wah. Team wah wah. Pim wah wah, with a long built up note added to the short pickup to that downbeat. Pam, pa, pam, salutare, right? Okay, so that's our first piece of music. Let's take a look at Sunyoung Shin's submission, which is the Telemann Fantasia number 1. She had a question about bowings because anything could happen.
I have a question actually here from Christine, and I would love to have you.
Okay.
Would you slur the pairs in the violin in bar 48 of that Buxtehude?
Would I slur? Well, I have to see it again. Sorry.
Sorry, I can share. Hold on.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, hold on. I'll get there.
No problem. We're going to be doing this all next class as well, looking at pieces of music and seeing what needs to happen. Okay, in bar 48, you said? I don't have bar 48. 38? Oh, there it is. Okay. Ah, very good question. Wonderful. Tum tum tiram 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 ba. Okay, so first off, this does not imitate anything that the voice has done, as far as I know, or anything the voice is about to do. If you were to look at this bar 48 and you were to say, and you looked at the whole score and you found a passage where the voice did something of that, like that kind of anticipatory stepping figure, ta-dum, dee-dum, where you anticipate the next note down before you get to it on a main beat. If you found an example in the text that had ha, 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 then you would be at liberty to slur those eighth notes. Without that, since the composer has not put anything in, they typically didn't, but you probably wouldn't slur it without some justification from an actual text. And what you would do instead is you have repeated notes are a little more separate because they're like those twins and triplets that shouldn't be dressed the same. They need a little identity. So you had chum chum tee-dum, then you have the brother sister notes, ta-dum, then you have a repeated note, tee-dum, tee-dum, tee-dum. So you would basically be doing what you could call bowed out slurs. You would connect the first note to the second, but not the second to the third. Connect the third to the fourth. Cha-dum, tee-dum, 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 tee-dee-dee-dee, bum, 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 ba-ba-bum, ba-bum, bum, bum, ba-ba-bum, yum-da-da-deem, ba-bum, bum, right? Does that kind of address your question, Christine?
Elizabeth, we couldn't see your bow when you did 48. Could you do it a little higher in your camera?
Yes. I can. You'll just have to. I'll just make it up a little bit. Okay. So if you could take away this. Oh, I see. I can actually do this like this. Hold on. I can't make myself see myself. Hold on. Switch camera. No, doesn't work. No. Okay. So I don't know. Can you see me now? Okay. Right. Good. So what you're probably looking at there, you have the bass note there with that F in the bass. I'm out of tune again, sorry. You probably want to pick, so you wouldn't want them to be all equal. Right, that's tedious. So you'd pick your favorite harmonies. You'd look for your favorite harmonies. Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, it's you, Christine. You, Christine. Ah, Christine. Okay, I wasn't sure who it was. So, any more questions about that stuff in that line? Okay, cool. So, right?
We do have one from Akiko. Would there be occasions where you wouldn't slur those pairs, as in have a similar affect but not slur them, or is there a composer style in which you would more commonly do one or the other? Is that too complicated of a question?
Well, no, I think I can kind of get somewhere with it. The 17th century rep, by and large, they were pretty sparing with their slurs, and I think they tended to bow things out more. This is a generalization, not hard and fast, but I wouldn't be in a hurry to add slurs to the earlier repertoire in general. That said, I didn't add slurs here. I didn't go. Right? So I imitated something like a slur because of the way the notes were constructed, the note relationships, but it was bowed out. There was no slur there. In the High Baroque, I think you might have a little bit more latitude about adding some slurs here and there. I tend not to do it very much. It is a judgment call. And as I say, I'm happier justifying it when the composer has given me at least one example of a slur in some similar kind of spot. That gives you some rationale for it. Like Bach, for example, when he was writing his cantatas, he's cranking them out every week. He didn't have time to do the kind of careful job that he did with the violin sonatas and partitas, where his work is nearly flawless in terms of what he wanted in articulation, slurring wise. And in the cantatas, you can play the entire ritornello and not see a slur. And then he'll come to the next entry of a ritornello, and suddenly there's a slur on a figure you've already played, right? And it's just one slur, or maybe another slur, and it looks kind of like, I'm in a hurry, slur something, right? Maybe this, slur this, right? So it's kind of a hasty indicator. And at that point, you probably have to go back to the beginning ritornello and all subsequent ones and figure out what you think he meant. Add that slur every time, probably, because he's very consistent in his slurs when he has the chance to be that way. So that's just sort of knowledge of his practice, right? Okay, let's see. Let's take a look at this Telemann Fantasia number 1.
Terrific.
Sun-
Here we go. Hold on a
Okay,
second.
great. So Sun Young, would you just tell everybody what your question was?
Thank you for the piece. I couldn't figure out, I couldn't decide whether to do this downbeat on the, starting with the down bow or up bow. And then same thing with the second movements as well. It's just, I'm seeing the descending line, da, 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 but it somehow sounds nicer with starting up bow, but I feel like I have to follow the down bow rules. And then I was just thinking about which person of the 7 I should take more consideration into. And so I started going a little, woo, and then I'll just ask you.
Yes, you short-circuited yourself. Okay, first thing about rules, they are made to be broken. They are think of them more as guidelines. Anything that you've got in your mind as a rule, discard it as a rule, okay? Think of it more as a guideline, and then be always alert for the possibility that the composer is deliberately messing with the guidelines, right, on purpose for a special effect. So I love this example because both of these movements have very interesting features in terms of bowing. What do you see when you look at that first line? Tell me some things you see.
Me?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, okay, yeah. I was just, I was seeing the descending line and then just the fillers.
Okay, just the fillers, she said. Now I'm going to just do a little thought experiment. Let's say we turn those downbeats into rests. How are you going to bow the filler notes? How are you going to bow that?
Down, up.
Down, up, exactly right. Why should you do it any differently just because there's a downbeat?
Okay.
It's basically, he's basically introducing you to 2 voices. He's giving you a low voice and a high voice. So you're quite right about the downbeats. You could say you can do them down because they're downbeats, but your second voice has its own reason for being, which involves also a downbeat. So I would bow it down, down, up, down, down, up, down. So you get also, here's some benefits with this. You get not only an unusual bowing. This is in fact an example of what amounts to a saraband bowing, a strong downbeat, a strong second beat, and a quite released, weak third beat, right? So this is not your usual 3/4 bar. But you now have the opportunity, you've created this giant double retake of your down bow, helps create the sense of 2 voices. If you connect them, you erase the 2 voices, you kind of smear them all together into one thing, one linear thing. But the music is not written in a linear way. Those giant intervals are telling you something. And sometimes a really big interval needs a really big articulation and even a second down bow. So what you've got there is 2 voices now. And now you can really have fun with it because you can say, now I'm going to give these 2 voices a relationship. What is the relationship? Is the downbeat stern, palm, and the little other voice timorous and shy? What do you know? Is it all kind of, oh, I'm scared? Or is it a supportive and warm downbeat, palm, inviting the second voice? You can start to play with how you perceive the characters that have been created by seeing it as 2 different voices. So to me, that's the big benefit of acknowledging that high voice as a separate thing with its own reason for being. And notice that what you've got there, downbeat is bowing number 1, wah, right, declarative and strong. And then the second and third beats are bowing 4. Strong to weak, boom, strong to weak, right?
How should I do at measure 5 when it's supposedly piano and echo part?
Use about 1/6 as much bow.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, just make it piano. Just make it piano, but make it as if it were in another room, or you were just, replaying it to think about it for a second. Just take an attitude toward it, if you can sort of imagine. Yeah, basically it just needs to be soft. And that does, of course, this is a classic thing you see in Baroque music. You're playing along and suddenly there's a piano and you go, oh my God, I was supposed to be being forte, right? Because they didn't bother to put the forte at the beginning. It's really common event. There is kind of an assumption that you're going to play fully at the beginning of a piece unless you are otherwise notified by the composer, right? Okay, the second movement is a real piece of work. Can we see more of the second movement? I pinched out and now I can't see it.
Second, let me see. Hold on.
It was at the bottom of this page, I think.
Yes, I'm just seeing if I can. I think we only have the one page.
It's
Oh.
a different edition. I can put the score onto the camera.
How about, oh, you can, well, that's kind of, can you, that's kind of hard. Tell you what, Sun Young, I'll just send the link. I'm sorry, I didn't realize you wanted to do the second movement. So
Oh, no, that's fine. That's fine.
we'll do it tomorrow.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, next Tuesday, I mean. I wish it were tomorrow. Yeah, we'll take that one on because it's also a fascinating exercise. I will give you a hint about it real quick. Remember that Tartini said, and Leopold Mozart said, you should be able to make any gesture, any shape, either up bow or down bow. Ha 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 ha. Okay, so because if you do everything up bow, you're going to find yourself stuttering like crazy because you have to keep taking double up bows so often. It gets tricky. We'll talk about it though tomorrow. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have, how are we doing for time? Oh, it's 10.
All over. It's up to sort of everybody else,
One more? Just one more, maybe? Okay, one more. Let's do, I think it was Stephen's submission of the F major slow movement from the C major solo sonata of Bach. Yes. Okay, Stephen, can I get you to tell me tell all of us what you're interested in knowing about this?
Well, one thing would be just how rhetorically to approach this. I mean, it's a sort of funny thing following the fugue, and like balancing out the how to best to balance out the rhetoric and the melodic aspects. Which sort of helps me define what sort of tempo I want as well. I mean, I'm sort of thinking this more and more articulated and, something spoken, but it's also, like I always want to bring out the different lines. I mean, there's certainly, a bit of counterpoint happening here, and just trying to reconcile these different things.
Okay, all right, I get it. I think the first thing you want to keep in mind is that Bach, I don't think you need to worry about the fugue or look too hard for creating contrast or finding, I mean, yeah, I think that you look at the piece on its own merits, its movement on its own merits. You will have all the contrast and variety and different attitude that you need. Bach has essentially written all of that into his forms and material. So I don't think you need to worry about this piece that it comes after that giant fugue. So if you are thinking about playing this very melodically, gosh, it just will not stay in tune. So often we hear right? A very long singing line. We do that. one thing I haven't commented on because it hasn't actually come up and now it has, there was a concept about slurs that they imply decrescendos. So if you take that idea here, you're going to wind up with right? So I apologize for what is undoubtedly an atrocious sound on Zoom, but I think, right? You inflect that slur. It has a very confiding quality. Right? Now, if you go more melodically, you have a more powerful, intense kind of thing. But if you go more rhetorically, slur by slur, the character changes quite radically. I think you noticed. I saw you sort of reacting there. So. So now we're going to enter a very interesting discussion, and it'll take the rest of the time we've got, and don't even have really. And that is this notion of ornament in Bach. Many of these notes are functionally ornamental. I can take some of these notes out and not damage the intent of the line. Right? You have a normal profile there, and then, but you don't really need that E that comes after the G, nor do you really need the A that comes after the F, nor do you need the B flat. What you get then is right? You get that nice ornamented step, and another one. So the slurs are helping you to phrase away the ornamental notes, right? And leaving you with more of the structure, which you will not hear if you play completely melodically. Right? It's beautiful. It's a pretty line. It's a very pretty line. I'm not saying you can't play it that way. I don't think that's how it's conceived in that time. And I do think that there's something very beautiful about highlighting the local moments and letting go of the ornamental notes. Right? And so on. So play around, use Bach's slurs as articulation marks, since they're mostly intended as that. And identify notes that you think you can remove. When you've located ornamental notes, they can be more ornamental and less central in the line. Does that kind of head towards your questions?
That does. Oh, and when you mentioned the slurs, it reminds me that Honor Bilsma points this out. This is the text we're looking at, but Honor pointed out right in the very beginning, and if you look at the facsimile, that the A is separate from the B flat D, B flat C. It's interesting, and it's if you look at it looks sort of pretty clear in the facsimile of the autograph, and it's sort of interesting.
You mean the A at the end of the
Right at the very beginning, yeah, the A B flat C, that the B flat C is separate from the A. So it's worth
Yeah, I might have to examine that and revisit it.
Yeah, I think it's one of those judgment calls, I think, but
Well, it's not a judgment call for me. I've got my mind made up. I think
okay.
I think the three-note slur is good. Partly because
Then we then we see it later. Yeah.
we see it again. It's inverted in the second bar, right? A falling three-note line. Yada, yada,
Right.
right? And that is kind of a central thing about Bach, that he likes to play with his motives, and he likes to make sure that you can identify them. So, I mean, there are, like I said, 99.9% perfect marks in the facsimile. There are the occasional things you have to wonder about. You just have to go, does that slur begin or end there? The cases, and this is the last thing I'll say tonight, but it is a fascinating thing. If you start looking at how Bach wrote his slurs, the cases where you have the most ambiguity in where a slur starts usually involves places where he has written a chord, more than one note. Quite often. It looks like sometimes he's telling you to start the slur on the note after where he's written the chord. And that could have been simply an iconographical habit of his to not get too much ink all involved where that chord was written. Like I say, I mean, I can find you a couple other examples, or you can find them easily for yourself in the solo sonatas and partitas. Yeah, so it's I don't love Anna's point there. I do have some other wonderful obscure points about this particular movement. Actually, I think is missing some slurs. I guess we could just take a quick look at that. I look at the balance here, just those first two bars. Slurred going up, end of the line. Not slurred. Downbeat, inverted original slur. Rising, the answer to the end of bar one was 3 descending notes separate. Now the answer in end of bar 2 is 3 rising notes separate. And if you also look at the pattern, there's a 3-note slur followed by 2 2-note slurs in every one of these bars except bar 4, which is the final bar. And so maybe it gets to be a little less sing-songy. You don't have to add the slurs in the second beat of bar 4 because he's approaching his cadence. He's winding up the phrase. It needs to be a little different. Yum pum pum tiari, yum pum bim, yum pum bim. Would be a little bit sing-songy there. But there are places in this movement, which we don't have time to go into right now, where I think there are missing slurs. I do. He's not 100% perfect, 100% in the slur department. There's only 1 or 2 notes I've found in the entire set that I can't help wondering about. But yeah, basically, yeah. Yeah. If I can find that spot, I'll find a couple spots where the slurs look like they begin after the chord, and yet it doesn't make a lot of sense in terms of patterns and motives being spoken the same way so that you can identify and relate to them. Okay, I'm going to come back. You can take that score away for now. I just want to say goodbye because we've gone on awfully long. Thank you for your attention and your time. I'm sorry I always run over. I appreciate that. You don't mind. And next time we'll do all the other pieces, at least something on all the other pieces. And if you have questions, be prepared to answer questions, ask your questions so everybody knows what you're interested in having us focus on. We didn't sing today, but sing. Between now and next week, sing something. Sing the piece that you're interested in, sing something, and notice your intuition activating about what's important, okay?
You know, I was thinking it would be so fun if we could have a reception after next week, and I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to
A little glass, and we'll drink to each other. And
But let's plan if people can stay just a few extra minutes next time and be a little bit social at the end, because this is really quite a wonderful journey we're on. And I really appreciate it, Elizabeth.
Oh, well, I'm having fun. I'm having a ball. Thank you very much, and giving me a chance to rant on and on about things I love. All right, so I'll see you next Tuesday, and we'll carry on with looking at this music. And every once in a while, just speak up and say, you were going to have us sing, or you were going to have us play, okay? Because I really want you to practice some of these gestures that are coming up. In fact, we're going to return to that telemon, and we're all going to practice that double down bow at the beginning of that fantasia, because that is a great exercise in rhetoric. Okay, good night, everybody.
Bye.
See you next week. Goodbye, goodbye.